Hi guys, and welcome to Escape Wheel Watch Reviews. My name is Steve, and today we're going to be reviewing the Feice Bauhaus Automatic Model F201. I received this watch for free. I don't have to send the watch back, but you guys know the deal by now. You're always going to get my honest opinion on this channel, and if by the end of this review you want to pick one of these up, I will be leaving a link down in the video description. It's not an affiliate link or anything like that. It just takes you to feicewatch.com, and you can pick up the watch there. No discounts or anything like that for you guys, so yeah, it is what it is. The retail price for this watch is about $139 US. That's before any taxes, coupons, VAT, etc. The watch only comes in white. As you can see here, they do offer a black strap option, and then also for $10 extra, a little steel mesh bracelet as well. So just something to consider. The watch case is made of stainless steel. It has a sapphire crystal, a push-pull crown, a screwed-in case back, not a screwed-down case back, a screwed-in case back, 30 meters of claimed water resistance, and the watch is powered by the Seagull ST17 automatic movement. So this is my second Feice on the channel. The first one did not do so hot. So what do I think about this one? I do think it's a nicer watch. So let's dig in and find out. But before we do a quick wrist check today, again, wearing a watch you guys cannot buy. This is the San Martin and Watch Dives SN0113 version 1. Let me know if you guys want to see a review on this thing. I know, like I said, you can't buy this thing, but yeah, I didn't do a review on it just because it was sold out before I could really even do it. So yeah. All right, first things first are the dimensions. A case diameter of 38.8 millimeters, case thickness of 10.7 millimeters, 20 millimeter lug width, a lug to lug of 49.2 millimeters, and on the included leather strap, weighs 65 grams. So I think the size on this thing is actually pretty nice. That 38.5 diameter, and then 49 millimeter lug to lug. That's pretty long, but these lugs, they're pretty thin, and they kind of angle down. They do curve down a little bit, but it's still sitting above the case, so it doesn't really hug the wrist all that well. 10.7 millimeters thick is a nice dimension there, but again, it is a very flat and kind of slab-sided case, so you're seeing all of that 10.7 millimeters. So it doesn't appear as thin as it should, in my opinion. And really, those turn down to the lugs there. I know this is a certain style of watch, but yeah, it just doesn't help the case any. So it's more just a design thing, in my opinion. But I still do like the way that this thing wears. So I'm going to go outside right now and throw it on my wrist for you. And here we are on my 7.5 inch wrist, and as you can see, it wears great. I love the size on this thing. It's all dial, very flat case, even with a little turn down to the lugs there, but a very flat case. It's thin, but it doesn't appear as thin as the numbers would suggest. So, but it is pretty thin, pretty lightweight, pretty comfortable even on this strap, and we'll talk about the strap here in a little while. But I do like the play off the bezel. You can see the dial is perfectly legible, even under this oak tree, which usually gives watches issues. No problem here. So yeah, overall pretty satisfied with the way this thing wears and with the way this thing looks. And here we are out in some direct sunlight. You can see there still no issues really reading this thing. There's no AR coating on it, but I really don't think it needs it. Otherwise, it's a very simple case. I do like the light play off the case and off the bezel. I think it looks pretty good. It's a very simple design, but it looks good, and I like the depth on that subdial too. You can kind of see the blued hands as well popping there in the sunlight. So yeah, overall, pretty happy with the way this watch looks and the way this watch wears. But let's go throw it on some straps and we can get back to this review. Yeah, here we are on a mesh strap, and I do think that actually looks pretty good. Pretty classic combination there, mesh strap with a polished case. It's going to look pretty good. And here we are on a vintage blue leather strap. I'll be linking this one down below. This is off AliExpress, nice and cheap and pretty good for the price. But I think that actually looks really good. I like the taper on the strap, and I like the blue. It kind of makes the hands pop a little bit. What do you guys think of that one? And here we are on a black 2-stitch strap. This is one that's lifted off of my Wise, so no link for this one, but I do think that looks pretty good. Pretty classic look in my opinion. And lastly, here we are on a suede 2-pass NATO strap. You can see there are 2 layers underneath the watch, and they are pretty thick layers, so it is sitting up nice, but still very comfortable. Yeah, I think that actually looks pretty good. Just kind of tone it down a little bit. What do you guys think? All right, let's go back inside and let's get back to this review. All right, so let's talk about the case finishing. So case finishing is fully polished. There's not a brushed surface on the watch except kind of that bead blasted finish there on the back, which we'll talk about here in a second, but fully polished. You can see it's a 3-piece construction with the case back, the mid case, and then a bezel on top. Those are all different diameters, so you do get kind of a weird little stepping there. It looks pretty cool though. I do like it, and I think visually it kind of shrinks the watch down just a little bit, and there's some cool light play off of it as well. Even that top surface, you know, right on the top of the bezel there, that is still polished as well. So I do think it looks pretty good, and I think for the most part they did a decent job with the case polishing. Obviously it's not going to blow your mind. I have definitely seen better at this price point, but I've definitely seen worse as well. So yeah, it's kind of somewhere in the middle of it. You can see here you do have drilled lugs, which is nice to see as well. Flipping it to the crown side, you do have a signed crown there, just a kind of a little bird or something like that. It's very tiny, very small crown, but really no issues with it. I think it blends in pretty nicely and as far as the size goes, and yeah, I mean, it's easy enough to work with. Flipping it to the case back here, I'm going to test that. I'm assuming that's mineral, but then just your typical case back here, screwed in. It's not a screw down case back, aiding in that 30 meters of water resistance. Bead blasted. It's a pretty nice case back though. This feels maybe just a touch rough on my fingers, but on wrist it's been fine. There you can see a nicely decorated movement there. Obviously nothing special, nothing fancy, but it's not just, you know, stamped steel, so that's nice to see. That does have some decoration on it, so yeah, looks pretty good. All right, so let's talk about the crystal. First things first, we will test it for sapphire. It is positive for sapphire. So we do have a sapphire crystal on the front, which is a relief. I kind of expected this thing to test mineral, but it is positive for sapphire. There's mineral crystal on the back. It's just a flat piece of sapphire crystal. As you can see here, there's no AR coating or anything like that, but a flat sapphire with a white dial, it doesn't need AR coating in my opinion. It's a perfectly acceptable crystal. I think it looks good, and they chose a good one. All right, so let's talk about the dial on this thing. So the dial is just a stark white, matte white, no texture. I think it looks perfect. For a watch like this, it's a very simple watch, and it deserves a very simple dial, and they just nailed it in my opinion. Fully printed minute track around the outside, inset with your numerals at the even markers there. 6 o'clock has your 6 o'clock sub dial there. Getting real close, you can see it is sunken down in there, which is a pretty cool effect. And they do have those concentric rings, and then your second track printed inside there as well. You have your Feice branding there at the 12 o'clock, and then original underneath it. That is a questionable word to be using on a watch like this. This is not an original watch, not even close. So yeah, just putting words on the dial just to do it kind of bothers me, but also at the same time, I'm not here for the branding of a watch. I'm here for the watch itself, and I think a lot of people are too. But yeah, the branding, not great. Even my wife says it looks funny. And obviously it sounds funny too, but when you say it, Feice, it's fine. You have your date cut out there at the 3 o'clock, very simple date cutout. You don't want anything too fancy on a watch like this. You can see it is quite deep in there just because the dial does have some depth to it, because it's kind of 2 layers there, right? So that date does kind of get obstructed when you get it on angles like that, but for the most part, it's in there nicely, it's centered nicely, and I think it looks good. The handset that they use on this, really thin stick hand there for the minute hand reaching right out to the minute track. I think the hand size is good. You have a slightly bolder hour hand there, and then you have your seconds hand sweeping around down there on the sub dial. The hands, they are definitely painted blue. Obviously, I would like heat treated blue. The blue here does show up a little bit better than heat treated, but I mean, it just looks a little cheap in my opinion. They are 100% painted blue though, I can tell you that right now. Yeah, definitely not as nice as heat treated. We do have 0 lume on this thing, so no need to worry about that. So yeah, I think the dial on this thing is actually pretty nicely done. I do wish they would have used heat treated hands, but other than that, I think they kind of nailed it. Okay, so let's talk about the movement in this thing. So the movement is the Seagull ST17 automatic movement. Obviously a sub-second hand here at the 6 and a date window there at the 3 o'clock position. The movement for me has been absolutely fine. I actually have no issues with these ST17s. You can see how this one has been running 4 seconds a day You can't complain about that, and a good beater as well. So yeah, overall very satisfied with the way that this watch is running. The movement itself, it's a 21,600 beats per hour movement, so 6 ticks of the second hand every second. It does not hack, but it does hand wind. You have a bi-directional winding rotor, which is nice. Yeah, they're great little movements. They're cheap, they're reliable. This one has been very accurate for me. Yeah, they really don't bother me too much. Obviously, I would probably prefer an NH35, but they don't have one with a date or a sub-seconds at 6. So yeah, our options are limited, and this one has actually been pretty good for me. 40 hours of power reserve. The movement is operated by this 3 o'clock crown here. Simple push-pull crown, like I mentioned earlier. Pull it out to the 3rd position there. It does not hack, like I said, but this is where you set the time. Everything functions as it should. You do have a quick set date as well, so that's nice to see. So everything seems to be centered in there nicely. I've got no real complaints with the location of the date window. Yeah, I guess, I mean, there's nothing to really complain about with this movement. It's been very accurate for me, and it overall feels pretty satisfying to use. I've got no complaints with it other than non-hacking. That's pretty much it. All right, so let's talk about the strap on this thing. So the strap is actually pretty decent. It's 20 millimeters, like I said, tapers down to 18 millimeters at the clasp. It's a good length. I'm kind of right in the middle for my 7.5 inch wrist, so it's not too long, it's not too short. It's got a nice smooth taper, nice stitching as well. It's kind of this suede material. I think it looks good. I think it wears pretty good. It's been comfortable on wrist right away. You have a signed buckle here, Feice watch. A mixture of brushed and polished surfaces. I'm not sure why they put this buckle on there, but they did. It's a little bit loose, as you can see. It just kind of flops around, so it's not my favorite buckle, but it's functional. You have one floating keeper, one stationary keeper, and again, everything is sewn in. Very nice color match there. Flipping it over to the back, you will see some quick release spring bars, so that's nice to see. It does say genuine leather over here, and then we get to a head scratcher. Shell Cordovan handmade. There's no way that this is a Shell Cordovan watch strap. I have them, and this is not it. And even if you look at this thing, that Shell Cordovan and the handmade, it's not even like stamped in there straight. Yeah, it's just it's a blatant lie. This is not Shell Cordovan, and I don't know why they even put that on there. If they would have just put genuine leather, I would have said, yep, this watch strap is fine. It's good enough to keep in the collection. It breaks in nicely. It's soft enough. It's flexible. It's comfortable, and I have zero issues with it. But when they put stuff like that on there for I mean, just no reason at all, just to make it look and sound more expensive than it is, I have a little bit of an issue with it. So yeah, there's no way this is Shell Cordovan. There's no way this is handmade. It is a decent strap, I'll say that. It's a decent strap, but yeah, that's a complete lie. Other than that, though, like I said, the strap is fine. So there you go, guys. That is the Feice FM201, a very simple Bauhaus design. Obviously, a lot of nomos in there, and just, I mean, the design in general is iconic and classic. Many companies have done it in the past, and they actually pulled it off decent for $140 US. I think it is a little overpriced. The Seagull ST, it's not an expensive movement, and I've seen this movement in very similar watches for about half that price. You are getting a pretty decent strap. You're getting a pretty nice box as well, and I don't see any huge flaw with the watch itself. I think for the most part they got everything right. They didn't do anything terribly wrong with it that other brands wouldn't also do. So yeah, I think it's a pretty decent overall package. Maybe just a little bit too expensive. Maybe wait for a sale, wait for some coupons, something like that. But yeah, again, I don't think it's a bad watch. I think it's just slightly overpriced, especially because you can 100% find this watch or this style of watch from numerous other brands. And yeah, with the same specs, and it's going to be cheaper. So just something to keep in mind. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.